So the last time somebody did what we're about to do, it did not go well. That clip was a Willys Jeep FC 170, kind of like this one, with 44-inch Super Swampers that was competing in the Top Truck Challenge in 2009. Shortly after the competition, it was sold on eBay, and as far as I can tell, hasn't really shown up on the internet again. There have been a few notable Jeep FC builds at SEMA in the last few years, but those ones have always leaned more towards a overland build, which kind of makes sense for the form factor. It is a truck after all. It has a lot of room for stuff. It's not exactly designed for rock crawling. All right, here comes the new project. What do you think of the weird Jeep, huh? Here's the thing. From the very first time that I saw an FC, I wanted to build a rock crawler, one of these. You just had a crazy picture in your head of actually having to drive it and kind of how funny it would look. It's just, on one level, you would have this amazing visibility because you'd be able to see straight out of your nose. You'd be able to look right out your window at your tire. On another level, when you're going straight up something or straight down something, it's gonna be terrifying, I'm pretty sure. But I just thought, what a crazy concept. What a crazy build. And then I found that Top Truck one. I thought that nobody had ever actually built like a true rock crawler version. And then of course the video for that didn't exist on the internet because that's when they were still putting Top Truck on DVDs. So we didn't even find that till after we bought this. There's something here. We've got to be able to do this, but we need to use a little bit of modern touches to try to make it more stable. In today's video, I'm gonna walk you through our build plan for this Jeep FC. Jeep FCs are actually pretty rare. There was only about 30,000 of them ever made. This build is gonna be fairly unique in that it's gonna highlight a 450 horsepower engine. We're actually probably going with 43-inch tires and a bunch of other stuff. So we'll walk you around and show you what we're thinking. Okay, so this is our Willys Jeep FC 170. That is a mouthful to say. We were just kind of looking at old rusty ones. Yep. There was like some up in northern Idaho that came up for sale where a guy was selling 2 of them and he was like, if you glue them together, you might be able to get one good one. So we were watching like every single one that came up for sale. They're super rare, so they don't come up for sale very often. And then all of a sudden this one popped up in California. The guy that had this clearly was inspired by that giant white one that competed in the Top Truck Challenge. Yep. Because he started collecting parts for this and he was collecting very similar parts. Like he had 44-inch tires for it. He had better axles actually than the one that was in Top Truck Challenge. Real similar engine, it had a 383 stroker. He was kind of collecting to essentially build that same style, but with some more modernized parts. When we bought it from this guy, he was putting it all up for sale because he had decided it was time to build his family a house. So he was selling this and all the parts, and then you had to go down to California and pick it up. Mm-hmm. But everything was in pieces. So it ended up on a trailer. It filled your trailer. It filled the whole bed of your truck.
The whole bed and the whole cab.
Yeah. It was wild. Yeah. There's so many parts, and a lot of it is really good parts. Here's the crazy thing. He started building this based on the date codes that we can see on some of the products. It seems like it was like 10, maybe even 12 years ago. Yep. So we have a lot of parts that are brand new, never been used, but are like a decade old. Yeah. So like even the motor is a crate engine, has never been started, and our dog is pretty convinced that there's a mouse living inside of it, because every time the dog comes in here, it just comes and stares at the motor and growls at it. We have a pile of parts, a lot of stuff we were gonna have to buy anyway. But we're finding, we still have to go hunt down pieces. He just built the 14 bolt this last weekend, and we were missing a carrier, right?
We pulled the diff cover and there is nothing inside of the axle housing, so we
we had all new Yukon gear and axle stuff, but we just didn't have a carrier to stick it in, right?
These are USA standard gears, and then a Yukon install kit. Pretty standard stuff. We are reusing a factory carrier here, because this came with a grizzly locker. So this carrier will get disassembled and I'll put this locker inside. This is an automatic locker. Pretty simple, reliable.
This is kind of how it goes when you inherit somebody else's project. There's lots of stuff missing. We're gonna change some stuff. But yeah, we'll walk around and show you the components that we ended up with. Okay, so starting off the front, we basically start off with a Kingpin, Dana 60. He's already got it trussed with this goofy truss. We don't know, is it BCF or something like that?
Yeah, if you guys know what this full hydro truss is, let us know, because it's actually really good. It ties into the diff cover. It's gonna be sweet. We have some high steer arms it came with, and the ram's gonna be up nice and high.
Yeah, so ram way up here, steering all the way up here to like clearance, all the rocks and everything.
This is temporary to move it around the garage.
That's just so we could steer and be able to get it into the shop, because
Yeah.
it was doing the pigeon toed thing pretty bad. If we look inside, you can tell, like we said, there is a lot of work to be done on the inside.
So one thing that's pretty cool is he actually cut out all the original sheet metal floor, because they're pretty problematic when you're trying to fit a big V8 in here and stuff. And he framed this out to be nice and strong and allow room for the V8 and actual seating in here. So we're gonna have to modify this a little bit because Nate's like 8 feet tall.
I'm too tall and my head hits the top.
But it's pretty good start to the inside of this cab.
Well, and thankfully everything is just tack welded. Nothing's finished, so we can modify stuff pretty easily.
Yep.
There is more room inside of these cabs than they look. They look tiny, but you got to remember this was like a 3/4 ton truck. It's actually a lot bigger in person than it looks.
All right, Nate, see if you fit.
Imagine when this has 43s. It's going to be nuts.
I don't know how you're gonna get in, honestly.
You just stand on the tire. It's going to be like a giant shelf. All right. So to put it in perspective, this is going to be your driving angle, something like this. This is why we kind of have to modify the floor, because to be able to put pedals up here and then be able to fit in a brake booster, which is going to be insane because there's no room. On the competition one that they had, where they put a winch in the front, the winch was literally right here, like inside the cab. We're going to maybe build a bumper and not do that.
That sounds really dangerous to me.
Yeah, so this is going to get modified and brought down. But yeah, you got a steering wheel. You got your whole. I don't know. It's the cab's bigger than you think, but also like there's not a lot of height up here. If I put on a helmet, I think it would literally rub against the top. We're still going to have to put in roll cages here and the bar behind for the seat belts. But there is a lot of room. Like for the second seat over here between the two, you've got a big channel down the middle that's got some storage potential. I don't know.
You got your Atlas shifters already. I mean, there's so many good parts here that we don't have to buy.
I know.
It's awesome.
But we still have to actually put it all together and make it work, which is definitely going to be work. All right, well, I think that... Uh-oh. Do you know how high that's going to be when we're actually done? It's going to be wild. We need to get the badges for it. There's forward control Jeep badges that are really cool looking that go here. And we're still missing another door handle. So we still got to go hunt down some old parts for this thing. But
one thing I think is pretty funny is this is Nate's first car that actually is a Jeep and has the Jeep badge.
I've owned a Jeep Grand Cherokee actually way back in the day.
Have you?
Yeah, a long time ago.
That doesn't count. That's like a minivan.
Yeah, I have owned one of those.
That's crazy.
But yeah, this is definitely the first one we're actually going to build. It's a brand new Atlas, never been used, but it's like a decade old, something like that. I don't know, maybe this is one of the newer things he bought. I have no idea.
No idea, but it looks nice.
Yeah, looks great. It's got a monster transmission in it, and then it's a 383 stroker. Who was the builder on that?
Smedding Performance,
Yeah,
I believe.
Smedding.
And then it has like a Aldebrock EFI system on it of some sort.
We're gonna have to figure that out. The headers on it are he did the best he could to try to route the exhaust, but this is gonna be one of the trials of our life, I think, getting this to all actually work. It's got some old FOA shocks. We're definitely changing those out. In fact, when you look at the Top Truck Challenge truck, One of the biggest issues that it has is when you're already top heavy and then your rear end is trying to unload your shocks, you kind of have a tendency of flipping. So we're gonna go with kind of a race technology shock that's called an ORI. They've been using them on a couple race trucks, even in King of Hammers, and abusing them. But they have a way to control shocks unloading. So we're gonna go for a set of those and see if we can use that to try to make this thing not do what happened to the one in Top Truck Challenge. Yeah, we don't want to do the whole flip over thing. The other thing we have going for us is the suspension's much improved compared to that one, because that one was on...
It was a 4-link with a panhard bar and coils and
coils.
Old shocks. This is triangulated 4-link.
Yeah, so triangulated 4-link I think is going to keep us from... It was just really squirrely when it got unloaded and up in the air. So I think this is going to help a lot. This seems to be clearance pretty good. It was really cool for it to come with this stuff. This is the exact same suspension that Zeph puts on everything. So if we look at I'm calling it the Toyota powered Jeep now. If we look at the Toyota powered Jeep underneath, it's set up identical to this one with maybe a little bit bigger hardware, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so far, so good.
All this fab work, honestly, you never know when you inherit a project, especially when you drive like states away to go get it. Luckily, this is all very nice. I think he did a really, really professional job putting all this together, and all the welds are nice. We're not gonna have to redo a bunch, which is amazing.
Yeah, if you guys have ever seen an old one of these are all C-channel. So he started cutting out and boxing the whole frame. There's a few pieces left, but he even had the cutouts for it. And again, that's all tack welded. So we've got a lot of welding we need to do to get it all burned in and finalized. He also chopped the end of the frame back here.
Yeah,
after the rear tire, it used to drop back down and you'd lose your clearance. So here, it's been chopped right here.
And probably stretched.
It out.
I think it's probably stretched about 1.5 feet from the original 170.
It's gonna have a long wheelbase. We measured it. What was the wheelbase right now?
119, I believe.
If you guys think of this build as a rock crawler, this is more like a full-size invasion style rock crawler than super tight, really narrow trails.
I mean, this is a full width axle, and the cab is almost as wide as it. So
yeah,
I mean, it's big. It's a very big truck.
It came with a really nice radiator. Only hard part that we have with this kind of stuff is this stuff's so nice, but if you break anything on here, it's almost impossible to get replacements. So we're kind of going back and forth on whether we're going to get something that we can actually pick up at O'Reilly's, or I don't know. We'll figure that one out. It's got the dual fans. It's got a nice fuel cell already in the back. Other than that, you know, all the electrical, all your cooling, all this has to be taken apart again and resealed because it sat for so long with no oil in it.
And I mean, like we're finding out during unboxing all of our parts, there's no torque converter in this transmission. So this has to be split apart. Torque converter and flywheel have to be put in. The hardest part, I think, is going to be finding out what is done and what is not done yet.
Yeah.
So basically everything's eventually going to be taken back apart and redone.
There is no bed. There was a bed that was originally with this cab, but apparently the bed was in almost perfect shape. And in order to do this, you have to modify the bed so much. I think he did the right thing. He sold the bed to somebody that was restoring one, because we would have had to chop it apart so much. So we're going to end up building a bed from scratch for this. That should be a fun side quest, I guess.
Should be cool.
One thing you got to keep in mind, when you build a bed on the back of here, if you're going to be able to service your engine, the bed has to basically be able to like pivot off to the side or be able to take the bed off really easy, because a lot of people put like hydraulics on the cab so it can pop forward kind of like a semi-truck. But since this is a rock crawler and we need to be able to tube it to roll it, you can't really do that, because all of the tubing that we're going to build into here to do a roll cage and to do 5-point harnesses for the seats and everything, that's all got to get secured down to the frame. So yeah, if you want to work on the engine, this is your access back here. So bed's going to be a really interesting and fun project to kind of like piece together the final look of this whole entire thing, we are gonna put some huge tires on it to get it clearance because it has a really long wheelbase. And we're looking at probably going with the 43-inch Mickey Thompson Pro X's.
What would you guys put on this thing?
Yeah, what would you guys stick on it?
What do you think is correct for this build?
We know Pro X's is not really a Moab tire. It's more of like an East Coast tire, but it also, this is kind of a showy truck. And we want the proportions to just look kind of crazy and out of this world. Yeah, almost cartoony. But we fully intend to drive this thing, like actually take it off on trails. We'll probably end up with 2 sets of tires for it for different types of activities. Yeah. But like we already know the Pro X's do good for snow wheeling. Nate's been using them. So I think we're gonna put a set of 43s on it and go from there. Put some beadlocks. What else do we have? Zeph just pulled apart the 14 bolt this weekend to kind of kick the build off.
Yep.
Everything
it went really smooth. I mean,
we had cool components. This is our shelf of stuff. We tried to organize it as best we could, but this is literally all just old new stock, basically. That's all just pieces that potentially or likely will end up in here. Okay, so one other thing worth pointing out, we very likely are going to mount a spare in the back. We're going to mount it as low as possible, but we're trying to build this in a way that the weight from the front and the weight to the rear is going to be pretty balanced. It's hard to imagine because the cab will look so big and so tall, but the cab doesn't actually have very much weight to it. So if we can put a full spare back there, we've got all of our cooling back there, we've got all our fuel. We'll have to figure out how we build the bed, but we're trying to actually weight balance this thing so it doesn't do the pop wheelies and whole flip over thing.
The factory FC 170s actually had a weighted rear bumper to keep them from flipping onto the nose when going downhill. So we're gonna try and kind of do that, but with our factory components instead of adding unnecessary weight. But yeah.
So yeah, like literally like every extra weight thing that we have is gonna get mounted in the back. If we take a jack, we're gonna find a way to mount it in the back. We're gonna mount all the gear, recovery gear, anything like that, all goes in the very back to kind of offset. We are gonna have to find some glass for this. We have the front windshield, which is one of the harder ones to find, but we're missing most of the other glass. So I know that I think there is a company out there that remanufactures those nowadays, makes them. So we should be able to get that. Okay, a couple questions for you guys. I'll show a couple FCs on the screen right now. There's 2 ways these usually got painted. They would usually be one color here with like a different color on the top and a different color in this really cool like grill section here. So we kind of have an option of doing a paint scheme, kind of like something like that. Or we could just clear coat it. I know a lot of the old guys like the patina, but our patina is kind of pretty well messed up because there's been a lot of just rust prevention on here.
We'd have to try and sand the primer down and get to the green that is underneath here, but that's gonna be pretty hard.
I mean, most of it, you can see the original paint, there is nothing left, like it's all the way down. So I don't think this thing's a great candidate, at least on the outside, for trying to save some patina.
Or do we just strip it all to bare metal and then clear coat the bare metal, kind of like on that side?
Yeah, that could look good. The inside, the original color is this green that's on the inside. We might be able to save some of that. Okay, so what is this build gonna look like on this channel? Well, for one, some of you guys might not be into FCs at all, or even Jeeps for that matter, and that's totally okay. We're only gonna be covering this build probably 1 to 2 videos a month at the most. And even when we do, we're gonna be covering it in more generalized topics. Like for example, how to set up a 4-link properly. A lot of people, whether you're building a Toyota, a Jeep, or your own from scratch vehicle, you're gonna have to learn how to probably set up a 4-link correct. We're gonna have a video on the new suspension setup that we're gonna try out on this that is definitely not specific to a Jeep FC. We're gonna be covering body work because there's a lot of body work to be done in this. So if you've ever needed to patch a little rust panel or something like that, there's gonna be a lot of stuff. We're gonna cover all of that the same way that we generally cover outdoor auto videos, which is meaning we're going to give you as much information as possible. We're going to try to make it as educational as possible and try to give you enough information to where you really can go out and figure out how to do it on your own. Some of the other topics that we're considering covering is on wheels and tires. Like I said, we have a crazy set of tires we want for this, but let's say if you wanted to go on a trip that involved driving on normal roads and rock crawling, you'd want a totally different tire. So we'll probably be covering wheels and tires. We've been toying around with the idea of doing a homemade beadlocks versus buying beadlocks video. So we might incorporate that into the build series because we do need beadlocks for this thing. And then finally, there's going to be lots of fab work. So if you've been wanting more videos on how to build rock sliders or how to build bumpers or a winch bumper from scratch, we're going to definitely have to build all of that for this, including the actual bed for it. So there's going to be a lot of videos that aren't Jeep specific, they aren't FC specific. So I hope you guys will still tune into these videos and watch them, even if the thumbnail has a picture of a Jeep FC on it. There's going to be plenty of other normal content on the channel. In fact, in less than a week, I'm leaving for a huge trip down in Baja. It's going to be more miles than any single trip I've ever done in my life. And we're mapping routes all over the Baja Peninsula. I'm doing that in the tundra that we just got ready for that trip. So we'll have some videos on what we did to get that ready and some check-ins from Baja. So there's gonna be a lot of additional content that's still the more overland content and not the rock crawling content. I like to do both. Some people only like one. I like them both. So don't worry if that's why you watch this channel. That stuff's still coming as well. In fact, it's coming very, very soon. So yeah, thanks for watching. Let me know, out of the 5 or 6 different videos we listed for this, if there's any one of them that stood out to you a lot and you're very interested in it, let us know, because it's always good to know what you guys want to see. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys on the next video.